Hello. How we doing? Okay. Welcome to the All the Money for All the Women Now section of the day. I'm Cahn. I'm the founder and CEO of iFundWomen. iFundWomen is the only startup funding platform designed specifically for female entrepreneurs. And the problem that we are working on solving, which is also why I am hosting this panel, we're working on solving the problem that there is a complete lack of funding options for early stage female entrepreneurs. Raise your hand if you're an entrepreneur or founder. Yes, girls. Okay, so you know this. Only 1% of companies, regardless of the gender of the founder, will ever raise venture capital. And for women, we know the stats, but let's talk about them again. Let's refresh our memory. In 2018, companies with a female founder received 2.2% of venture capital dollars in this country, which is not enough, not even close. Women of color received 0.32% of VC dollars. And when you think about only 1% of us are raising capital, regardless of our gender, from VCs, what do the other 99% of us do? We max out our credit cards, or we try to take out loans, and we dogmatically believe at iFundWomen that nobody should go into debt funding your MVP, your proof of concept, your first customers, the earliest days of your business. So I'm gonna be joined on stage with 4 amazing women. Come on up, ladies. Come on up. This group is an interesting group because we are all entrepreneurs, we are all investors. So we see the VC landscape and the funding landscape from both sides, which is an interesting perspective. So I think we're gonna bring the rage to the stage and tell some truth about what it's like to get funded as a woman. Welcome, girls. Okay, I think, yeah. I think I'm supposed to be there, Linz. I don't know.
Where am I going, buddy?
Go wherever you want. I think I'm supposed to be on the end. I'm trying to follow directions. Okay, so I'm gonna let these ladies tell you their stories and introduce themselves, and we're gonna start with Miss Hitha. Woot woot.
I love you, Karen. I'm Hitha Palepu. I am the CEO of Rhoshan Pharmaceuticals. We are developing the hopefully first to be approved injectable aspirin in the United States. I'm also an early stage investor and a proud investor of iFundWomen, an advisor, and all around sleep deprived human being.
Hey everyone, my name is Feingold, and I am the co-founder of a company called The Fourth Floor. We connect early stage women-founded startups with female legal executives, general counsels. I started my career, I was the 17th employee and first lawyer at Etsy. Is anyone a lawyer in the room? Yay, lawyers, hi! And you know, there aren't enough women on boards, but one way to get women on boards is to get women on boards of smaller companies. And women, female executives can really help these smaller companies scale, and we can angel invest, and then you know what can happen, we can get board seats in other places, and it's just really helping the ecosystem. So that's what the Fourth Floor is all about.
LTW in the house, everybody. Yes.
Thanks, everybody. My name is Lindsey Taylor-Wood. I'm founder and CEO of a company called the Helm. We make it easy to invest in women, and we do that by driving capital towards female entrepreneurs through our venture fund and our e-commerce platform, which I think I'll be speaking a bit more to later.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Danita Johnson. I'm the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Sparks, the women's national basketball team.
Yeah.
Thank you. And with us, we get to empower the future of your young daughters and inspire your young boys. So I'm very excited to be here today.
Okay, Danita, we're gonna start with you.
Okay.
Yes, sports. Okay, so almost half of all sports fans are women, right? I'm a huge Pats fan. Sorry, everybody. We did have a loss, so, you know, it's good. 40% of athletes are female, yet female athletes and women's sports in general only get 4% of the media coverage. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay, so what can we all do, and what do we do about that? How do we change that?
I mean, it kind of goes back to what you were saying from the VC side. Not only do we only get 4% of media coverage, we actually get about less than 1% of sponsorship dollars. And so, yeah.
Bringing the rage to the stage.
So, and I think it might have went up. There's a new stat that came out, I think it's like maybe like 3 or 4%. And I think that's just due to some increased coverage that's happened. But for us within our space, talking about how do we make change, how do we make impact, it really boils down in our world. If you turn on your television and you look at anything sports related, it's going to have one of the big four: the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, the MLB. That's what you're going to see. Unless it's a magical moment, such as the Olympics and there's gymnastics, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or it's a magical moment and you see U.S. women's soccer. And for us, our women's basketball team, who will be playing in the 2020 Olympics, has won 100 games. They have 7 medals, and it's never talked about. So this is the kind of thing that we're fighting. And how do we be a part of that change would really be about, from a media standpoint, everybody in here has their phones in their hands, right?
Yes, get 'em
you
out,
have
people.
the power to not only follow, talk about, make it a part of the conversation, be a part of the conversation, create conversation. If people see it as dialogue and relevance, it helps for us at the bigger stages when we go to these big networks. But not only is that, it's how do we get more women in the room at these bigger networks that are being pushed forward, and then also educating broadcasters and people in the space about our sports. And I'm not just talking about basketball. I say this as a whole because this is a bigger issue. Imagine having a sports broadcaster come to talk to you or interview one of your players, but they know nothing about them. How does it become conversation on the news? These are the things that we have to start educating on, and when we're building up broadcasting programs and different things of that nature for our young women and young men, it needs to be part of the dialogue that's happening within that space from a conversational point.
Absolutely. It's interesting because you're an entrepreneur, you're a sports entrepreneur, right? You're running a sports startup.
Absolutely.
So Hitha, you're running a pharma startup, and you're also an investor. So we, as women here, know way more than we hear yes, and it's nearly impossible not to take investor feedback on your baby personally, who has had that experience, right? And you really just have to build up such a thick skin because you're going to get tons of no's, but you're also going to get yeses if you keep pushing. How have you handled the no's and the feedback? Because I think it'd be helpful for everybody to hear.
I mean, first is cultivating that thick skin, and I think being a mother of a toddler is the best training for that, because you were told no every day. Like, no investor scares me anymore, because I'm like, listen, I've been to battle with a 4-year-old this morning who like insists on wearing a certain pair of pants, and it's fine. But it really is hard, and it can be very draining, especially when the no is not accompanied with specific feedback. In the case of raising for Rhoshan Pharmaceuticals, I have pitched to every healthcare fund, every family office, every investment bank, and only one fund offered specific feedback as to why they were pausing diligence. And that was transformative because I knew exactly what I needed to answer as I continued on this progress. Now, I don't take no's as a final answer. I hear them in my brain as a not right now, and I make sure I continue updating everybody who I think could be the right fit for me on our feedback, on our progress. So when I reconnected with this fund who paused diligence in July, basically answering every single question they gave me, giving them an update and showing that we were actually 2 steps ahead of where the process was. Basically, they said, when can you come in and talk with us? And, you know, hopefully we'll be closing with them very, very soon. And from the first time I met them, I knew, and there's a gut check of who's going to be good for my company. I felt that about them in a way I did not feel about any other investor. Now, on the flip side, too, everyone I pitched to is a man. Every single person I have pitched to are men, and mostly white men. And being a young Indian woman, I been mistaken for the secretary, for the assistant, for a project manager. People said, oh, we're expecting a Mr. Hitha Palepu to join us. And I'm like, I'm Hitha Palepu. Here's the coffee you requested. Shall we get started? And
You are so much nicer, and
I
like,
mean-
I would be in a rage spiral.
I think what this
How do
does,
you do it?
though,
Actually, how do you keep the control?
I go to Rumble afterwards and like rage box, because that is, you have to get it out somehow, and that's what working out does for me. It has very, of course, everyone wants to look good, but really it's the only way I can take all this negativity that does build up inside of me and physically expel it from my body. But this has informed how I invest too. There's nothing more frustrating than getting a no and getting no context around it. So even if I do pass on an investment, I'm very clear about why this is not a fit for me, or if I think it's too early stage, advice on what I would need to see to get to a yes. And it takes more time, and it would be very easy to say, not a fit, thanks, but I know, been on the other side enough times to know how frustrating it is, and I don't ever want to make another founder feel that way.
That's really, such interesting perspective, both from a founder perspective and from an angel investor perspective. Lindsey, you have a similar you're a dual citizen, if you will. Tell us how that is. Tell us what you focus on and tell us the truth. How is it going, and give the people a specific, tangible, actionable piece of advice that they can take. Like Hitha said, go to Rumble, get it out, and take the feedback and really think about how you can keep engaging with that investor and keep the conversation going.
So there were about 5 different questions and requests in there. I'm going to try and make my way through them all.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm a founder and a funder, which is a really interesting seat to sit in. I think it makes us a lot more empathetic towards entrepreneurs who are looking for funding, and I think we talk a lot about venture capital being the most expensive capital that you can take, and certainly there are things that we require of our companies and things that we want to see, but I do think that being a founder myself has definitely changed my perspective on the relationship that we have with the companies we've invested in, and really asking them what their needs are and how we can be a good partner to them is as important to me as ensuring that we get the sorts of returns that we hope to get. And what I think that ends up doing is creating an intimacy and a relationship with our founders that's been very special and unique to our fund, and I'm very proud of that. As far as what is an actionable piece of advice for everyone in the room, if any of you are familiar with the Helm or have heard me speak before, it's always the same thing. And we started this company because we realized that as a general rule, when men have money, they invest it, and when women have money, they give it away. And we really need to start thinking about the implications of that as it relates to the world that we live in. In its crudest sense, if white men of privilege are investing in their own self-interests, with 99% of the dollars being invested, and we then spend a vast majority of our capital cleaning up the unintentional consequences of not accounting for the micro and macro outcomes of those companies and the things they didn't account for by not taking all communities into account, then we're going to continue and perpetuate the same issues that we're seeing year after year, decade after decade. And so I would just invite you to think strategically about how you use your capital. What is the world that you want to see? How are you actively contributing to that? Could you do it through conscious consumerism? Could you do it through early stage investing? It's why we built our company the way that we built it, so that regardless of your capacity, we have a product and a vehicle for you that allows you to drive capital towards female entrepreneurs who are building the world that we want to live in.
That was beautifully said, and I will also add, that was beautifully said, and I will add on to it. So we built iFundWomen to enable people who wanted to support women-owned and women-run businesses, whether that's you're a SaaS B2B company, or you're a farm-to-table restaurant, or you're making jewelry, whatever you're doing. So all of you can go out and invest in women entrepreneurs on iFundWomen. It's cash. It's a contribution to their MVP, their pilot, their prototype, their startup. It's you're not. You don't need to be a person that's going to write a $10,000 check or a $5,000 check to invest. When you talked about conscious consumerism, I think that's a really important point. And I think, Danita, we should talk about that with the LA Sparks, because when we think about conscious consumerism, it's literally just figuring out who's making the money from this purchase. Whether you're buying a lip gloss, is it a Unilever, brand, or is it a P&G brand, or is it a brand like FemPower Beauty, which is a new brand out of New York City that does dope lipsticks. Why wouldn't we be buying from them, right? Buy from women, make women rich. So how can we do that? And Sarah, I'll get to you, but Danita, how can we do that in terms of the LA Sparks? Tell everybody where to follow. What can we buy? Do we buy merch? What money goes to the players? How can we support?
It's multiple layers to it. the follow is at LA_Starks. My social team's gonna be so proud of me right now.
Yes. Everyone follow.
Please just do that, so they'll be like, good job today. But I think for us, it's just that. It's like consciously spending your dollars, right?
Yep.
Think about how many sporting events or concerts or shows you've been to. How many of them are female-driven or female-led? Like, where are you spending your discretionary income? And then from an investment standpoint, the great part is, especially for many of you guys that are founders in this space, taking our brands and elevating together. We may have been around for a while and we have an establishment, but don't be afraid to be like, you know what? My company's not there yet. I can't invest in this space. I can't elevate this. And this is not just about some signage on a wall. Okay, I'm talking about programming. I'm talking about things that actively engage in our communities. I started a platform 5 years ago called We Are Strong, We Are Women. And then from there developed a program that goes along with it called We Are Girls. And what we do is we work with all females within our communities. We had over 150 female ambassadors that came from different walks of life, different levels in their careers. And we do classes and programming for them and then create networking groups for them to help build their businesses or just expand their networks. We have that power within sport, and I think what you see from a facade of the outside of just what you watch on television of a game is nothing of what happens on the back door of the true programming that we're doing. And we're using sport to elevate women in our communities and elevate girls within our communities and then inspire other people around them. So I think when we talk about investing in the space, realize that it's not just what you see on television. You can create programming, you can have an impact in that space and use it as a way and it's a caveat to bring people together. And that's the power of sport. It does bring people together. Look what happens around the Olympics in different pieces. That's what it does. So use that as an avenue for yourselves to invest.
I love that. Okay, so what you were talking about was access and connections, right? And a community of women doing it for ourselves, which is like obviously why we're all here and obviously why we all get up, every day and fight the feminism fight, which we all in this room do. So first of all, ladies, keep fighting. And thank you for being here and being active participants and supporting conferences like this. We know there's like lots of stuff to go to, and we all have to go to all the things because we have to make some fucking change. Okay, Sarah, pardon me, I told my team I wasn't gonna drop an F-bomb, but that happened. Okay, so Sarah, I wanna talk about the power of connecting women in community and giving them access to coaches and mentors who can literally show them how to do it, how to start up the roadmap. So tell us about what you're doing.
So the Fourth Floor Connect, as we've discussed, it's really hard to be a female entrepreneur. It's really hard to start a company and to get investment dollars. It's also really hard when you're at the top of your game, whether you're a general counsel or maybe you're a CFO of a company, a female general counsel or CFO, to really know how to take your career to the next level to get on a board. So our community is really helping these two groups of highly motivated women connect with each other so that everybody raises up. And so we have these conversations at the Fourth Floor about like, what are you looking for and what can I give you? Because we want to make sure that this is part of the dialogue all of the time.
And you've done it before, so let's not skip over that. So tell the people
I've done
who
it
you are.
before. Yes, so you mean how I got my job?
Well, just the Etsy of it all.
Yeah, the Etsy of it all. So I'm a jeweler, and I have been a jeweler my whole life. I chose my law school based on its jewelry program. I know there were very few lawyers here, but did anyone choose their law school on their jewelry program? Don't do that. I was going to get my MFA at the same time as my law degree, but there weren't enough hours in the day. I had a vision that I really wanted to use my law degree to help small businesses, help entrepreneurs. And then I found myself in a law firm in Rochester, New York, miserable, and selling my jewelry on Etsy. And Etsy changed a policy one day, and I reached out to their customer support team and got on the phone with their CEO and founder. And after I hung up the phone, I thought, oh my gosh, they don't have a lawyer. They need a lawyer. So I booked a JetBlue ticket from Rochester, New York to New York City, and I said, I'm coming down for an interview. You're gonna hire me to be your in-house attorney.
Yes, girl. Get it. Exactly.
So I did that. I quit my job. I got rid of my apartment. I sold my car. I moved to New York City. I was like, what is this place? And I was the 17th employee, first lawyer at Etsy. I helped the company scale to a publicly traded company.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
amazing. And so
Yeah.
you're taking
and so,
what you learned.
I think when people think of lawyers, they picture us in like suits and in a courtroom with maybe a gavel or a briefcase being like, you can't do that, or I object. But really, I've seen, am I a good lawyer or what? I mean, like, I actually passed the bar. This is like what I do. What I've seen is we have a community of female general counsels. We have a community of tech general counsels. It's a relatively new area of law because of the amount of startups that are here. And we get together and we share war stories, and we are a community, and this community is just really wanting to take our business savviness and help the community of female entrepreneurs to rise everybody up. And we're not doing this for charity, we're doing this because we all want to make some more money.
Yes. Okay, this is good. All right, we're going to do some rapid fire. Lindsey, what's the best negotiation advice you've ever received?
What was the best what advice?
Negotiation advice.
I think a lot of people in the room have probably heard Cindy Gallup's ask for the biggest number you can say without laughing out loud, which I won't say is like, I won't say the biggest number I can think of without laughing out loud, but I think it's a really excellent reminder to think about your own value and your contributions and what you're worth, and to be, sort of unapologetic about the ask. And we recently were negotiating something with someone, and they said, we realize you're, a young company and that you may not have these resources, but I'm going to tell you what I think that I'm worth now, because I want you to know that if I take something less than this because I believe in this company, like ultimately this is where we need to get. And I loved that. I respected her so much for that. I respected that she was unapologetic in her ask, and it is true. I mean, I can say as a founder and as a boss, if you don't ask, you don't get. And so I think women should really step into that more.
Absolutely. Danita, best negotiation advice you've ever received?
Kind of goes a little along the lines, but actually ask for the close. So you can ask for the money, but ask for the close. A lot of times you think you actually ask the closing question and you never do.
Tell us, what are some closing questions, like legit?
Like, do you want to sign on the dotted line? Can we sign this today? When can we
She's
get
so
signature?
right. Yeah,
Yes.
she's so right.
Like,
yeah.
seriously, because what we think is a closing question, a lot of times you're not really asking for the close. It's like, when can we get this signed? Can you sign on this today? Because what will happen is you'll ask, and I'm one of those, like, I'm a pitcher. I've been selling my whole career. I love to sell. So I'll ask for high dollars, which is great, and you ask that, you get the budget number. But if you don't ask for the close in the end, like, really think about it. How many times have you said, is this close? Can we close this today?
Yes. I mean, that's yes.
Let's talk. I'd go
I
to
do
that.
sales training.
I'd go to that seminar.
Can we close this today? Sarah.
I'm so used to hearing no so much that I think my advice, or my negotiation advice, is stop selling when you have the sale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kate Anderson said that this morning, my co-founder.
Yeah. So, I mean, you hear yes, and then you keep trying to get more yes. But they already said yes, so shut up, Sarah. Done. And I'm going to be quiet right now.
Don't talk past the close. Absolutely. Hitha, best negotiation advice?
I really try to, in that final meeting, I am aggressive about asking questions because I want to see exactly where the wiggle room is. And you only get that, you don't get it by talking, you get it by listening and asking the same question about 10 different ways. This is what I learned from my mother when she tried to find me out in a lie. Thanks, Mom. And for me, it was able to help me really define, is this worth my time? I meant doing this at the first meeting. Is this worth my time?
Is this related to check size or valuation?
Check size, valuation, what matters to them? And, whether, if it was a licensing deal, I was like, okay, how's this gonna fit in your portfolio? Do you actually have the resources to take it across the finish line? You have to remember, you need to do your diligence on them just as much as they're doing it on you, because there's nothing worse than a hostile investor or a shitty partner. And you will spend way more money getting out of a bad deal or buying out a bad investor than if you had just kind of figured out from the get-go, is this person worth my time? Is this person worth my money? Are they going to bring value to me, and can I bring value to them?
Well said. Okay. What are your top 3 2020 intentions? We're going to start here.
more women everywhere.
Are you going to make them in your belly or just?
No, I'm done.
Like, what are we saying here?
I'm gonna raise my woke little feminist boys into being good men. What Gloria Steinem said, we need to start raising our sons more like our daughters because we've been so focused on raising our daughters like sons. I also, like, men have to be at the table for this for us to actually enact change. And they're gonna say some really stupid things of how do I be a good mentor or how do I champion women? And it is you know what you did for that guy? Do that for a woman and don't be creepy. That's it. That's it. And
You need a show.
thank you.
You need a.
My goal is to be on The View one day.
Okay.
I'm putting
By
it
the
out
way,
there.
put that out there. I'm
Putting
sure
it
in
out
New
there.
York,
I'm gonna
I'm
manifest
sure someone
this.
in this room is connected to producers at The View.
And then
Hitha should be on
the
The View.
third is let's just get our current president out of the Oval Office.
Okay, she went there,
Please.
people.
I did. I just want civility and normalcy and someone with a brain.
That's wonderful. I agree. I concur. What are your intentions for 2020, Sarah?
So I think some of my intentions for 2020 is just personally, I want to be more present. We're all breathing and living, and that's a pretty awesome thing. So, we should really appreciate that. I really want to help lift other people up in any way that I can. I feel very fortunate to be in a situation that I'm in, and if I can continue to do that for other people. And, we haven't talked about this, but really, I'm trying to be a really good role model for a little tiny person that came into my life. So I want to be a role model for that person and for other people.
Lindsey, what are your intentions? And also, your head of content where is she? Had something great. Social. Hi. Stand up. You're on stage now.
Oh, gosh.
Tell the people, it's okay. Tell the people who you are and what I said, what do you do? And, you look great, you're glowing, like, what's up? What did you tell the people? What did you tell me?
Hi, I'm Noema. I manage social media at The Helm. Please follow.
Yes.
I manage social media at The Helm, so please follow us at The Helm Co. Lindsey, Julie, hope you're happy with our new followers. But so,
You had a very powerful
Yes.
response to me saying you look fabulous. What was it?
I said that I prioritize self-care, and a lot of the time I will say no to make sure that I get my personal hours in, and I find that just contributes to my relationship with myself and my relationships with my loved ones and my friends and how I show up to work. So prioritize your self-care.
Yes, and be serious about it. She said, I'm serious about my
Yes,
self-care.
I'm very serious about
And I
it.
was like, I thought that was so powerful. So, Lindsey, you've got an amazing team who's prioritizing
I have the
their self-care.
most amazing team in the game. Here are my 3 2020 resolutions. Announce and raise a $50 million fund.
Yes.
Introduce a new membership model for investors.
Yes.
And announce a conference that I can't say more about, but I'm so excited to tell you about. So if you go to the Helm CO on Instagram or
Yes.
visit our website and sign up for our newsletter, we have all sorts of really exciting things coming in 2020. And if you are a person who is interested in investing in women, is actively investing in women, is considering participating in a venture fund, wants to shop only female-founded products and services, if any of those things appeal to you, please come find me afterwards, because all of that can be wrapped up in raise money, invest in women, raise money, invest in women. That's my
Absolutely.
2020.
Absolutely. Danita, what are your intentions for 2020? Specifics. We like
Specifics.
tangible.
Well, I'll share one that already happened for 19, so we're just going to roll
Great.
that into 20. Last night we were announced as the WNBA Franchise of the Year, so I'm very excited.
Yeah.
It's all about we're top business franchise of the year, so I'd like to get a repeat. So let's go back to back for that for 2020. I think the next thing for me is I want to change the game in sponsorship and be the top team in the league when it comes to how we engage and invest and how partners actually invest with us. So that's very top tier for me. And then overall, because I feel like it's like part of the foundation, is just gratitude. Like just gratitude daily for everything that is involved in my life, the people around me, the experiences I get to have being here today, and all the experiences that the job and experience of my life have afforded me. So gratitude.
Okay, so question people, let me know what I'm supposed to be doing for people who have questions. But let's talk about failure. right? Everyone's like, now it's cool to talk about failure. Tell us about, and I'm starting with Ms. Hitha. What's your biggest failure and what's your biggest win in your career? Everyone's got fails and wins.
I had to shut down a startup in 2017, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it's devastating. You know, it's like the death of a family member. You take it so personally, even though now I had the space and the time to reflect. We never really had product market fit. This was not a great unit economic model. Oh my God, the fact that we even got this far is amazing. But in the moment, it was devastating. On the flip side of that, my biggest win is that was a business I started with my best friend, and starting a business with a friend can either be phenomenal or fail terribly, and our friendship is stronger than ever, and she's still to this day the woman I call when something good happens, the woman I call when something shitty happens, and we're more than friends, we're more than business partners, we really are sisters, and you need those people in your life to keep going. And I just cannot be more grateful that we're stronger together now than we were even before we started that together.
That was a beautiful answer to that question. Sarah, biggest fail and biggest win.
So I told the story of how I got my job at Etsy, which sounds like, a very clear path. But during that time, I was asking for jobs so many different places and hearing no so many different ways. And I think that, no one really talks about like how difficult that is to keep hearing no. And I think the only reason that I eventually heard the yes is because I just didn't have any shame anymore. And just like I put myself out there so many times and heard no so many times. I was like, I'm just going to fly down and see the CEO of Etsy and tell him to hire me. Like, whatever, everyone else has turned me down, he'll turn me down too. And so I think that that's like my biggest failures, but also that led to, what has made my career. But what I'm most proud of right now is what we're doing with the fourth floor. We had our beta launch in May, and we already have over 400 amazing members of female general counsels, industry leaders, and female-founded companies. And we're coming together, and we're changing the conversation, and we're literally rising up these companies right now. So failure turns to success in some sort of way, hopefully.
Always. It always does. That's the whole point. Yeah, the questioning. So, Lindsey.
It's such a hard question. I'm trying to be thoughtful about my answer. I think these are two sides of the same coin, the answer I'm going to give you. So recently, one of our founders has this amazing startup called Breeze. If anyone is in the LA area, she's launching on-demand healthy airport food in Delta and LAX this month. So would love for you to check her out. But we were interviewing her for our platform, our content and commerce site, and she was saying that the thing that she regrets the most or that she wished she had done differently was believing in herself early on in the company, and that not believing in herself caused her to make some hiring decisions and co-founder decisions and strategic decisions that she otherwise wouldn't have had she just listened to herself. And I'm sure every founder can resonate with that, but that definitely really struck me, and I think that my biggest failures were very early on, feeling pressure from external forces, instead of really listening to my head and my heart and feeling like I did what I needed to do. But interestingly, I would say what is my biggest success is it's today. It's getting up every day and showing up. And, Karen and I were commiserating, frankly, in the speaker's room and talking about how we actually don't talk about failure and we don't talk about how hard this is. And if you're a woman in the room that has a company, you know what I'm talking about. But it is the hardest thing in the world to raise capital. It is the hardest thing in the world to show up every day for your investors and your team, and they know 5% of what you know, and they're looking to you for answers and guidance, both personal and professional. It's just, there is so much pressure all the time, and I liken it to like having a baby and your only job is to not kill the baby. and you're just trying not to die every day, and it's so hard.
It's so
and
hard.
So I think 3 years in, I show up every day and I bring 110% of myself to work, even when that's not always acknowledged or recognized. It is important to me that I maintain my own commitment to the team and the mission and the goal, and being a steward of people who have entrusted me with their capital. And it's not easy. And so I think like that is my greatest success, that I keep on going even when it is so fucking hard.
You guys, seriously, she just told the truth. She just told the truth. It is so, so, so hard being an entrepreneur. It just is. And thank you for being honest. Seriously, it looks very glamorous. Don't we look glamorous up here? Hair and makeup and the whole thing, and Hitha and all of it. But it really, I mean, she's just glamorous. She literally wakes up like this, actually.
No, anyone
you're
who follows
following
me
Hitha
on
on the
Instagram
Instagram-
knows I do not wake up like
No, but
this.
she
and
is
I look
literally
like
the
a
glam-
hot mess most days, so this is fun.
Your version of a hot mess is my version of, But it is really hard, and it's amazing to be able to hear the truth. And Lindsey, thank you for that. Danita, biggest fail and biggest win in your career.
I think from failures, I think there's probably like 50 million of them. Honestly, what I realized in the midst of it is that they don't hurt as bad later on. But I think the biggest failure, I was very young and I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma for work for about a 3-year period. And in that period, I worked myself to death. Like I lost myself completely because I was working around the clock. And I think the biggest failure in that was losing myself to work. And so I think from that, the biggest success was, till this day, I can reflect and remember what it felt like fighting my way back to myself, which has gotten me here today. And if I hadn't failed in that of losing myself, I couldn't be succeeding now. And so the biggest failure is that I lost myself, but the best success is that I found myself. And I get to stand tall with that every single day. And I think that's why when we talked about intention, why gratitude will always be part of my intention year over year. And I will never, ever let that go.
We have some amazing words. And we also have questions from our audience. So ladies and gentlemen, feel free. Questions?
Hi, thank you all for sharing all of these wonderful thoughts. My name is Christine Sullivan. I'm a small business consultant, and I've spent a lot of my time helping small companies raise money. More recently, I've been working with women entrepreneurs, which I just love. And one of the things that I've noticed with them that I wanted to check in to see if it resonated with you and any advice you have is, whereas my male founders have no trouble going to all their family and friends and asking. And I went to business school. I'm on these threads where guys are asking each other for more and more money to fund some half-baked business idea. And most of
That's
my
being
women
generous.
founders won't do that. And I will give a shout out, Karen, to iFundWomen, because one of my most recent clients used your platform, and it supported the first all-women's co-working space in Connecticut. Go Haven.
Yay, Haven.
Haven.
Yes, amazing.
And what I found through using your platform was the very formulaic approach you used gave them a way to make the ask, but none of them are asking. And we can go through and write a whole business plan, spend inordinate amount of time, and they won't ask their family and friends. And I just wanted to check in to see if that's something that resonates and what you tell them.
So I can take that one. So so crowdfunding is when you, the entrepreneur, go out and raise small increments of money from lots of people that you know in your personal, professional, and social network to add up to just enough to get your thing off the ground, right? Don't go into debt funding your beginning of your business. And, most people don't have wealthy friends and family, right? And so that's the first thing we hear from most entrepreneurs is, I don't have wealth in my immediate circle. So how do I build up my network within my business sector or within my customer set to begin to make the ask to people who will A, want to invest, or B, want to buy the product or service? So for Haven, the co-working space in Connecticut, we really worked with them on like, okay, your friends and family are one thing, but like they're not ultimately your customer. Who is the woman who's going to be in that area? I think it's Darien, right? Who's the working woman who's working from home, a gig economy person, a freelancer, who needs to get out the house because they're going batshit crazy and wants to co-work with women in their community? Like, these are your customers. Let's make a list And if you don't, and how much are we going to charge these people for access to the space? And add that up. And if that's enough to get your space off the ground, you have your customers. And if it's not enough, if there's a delta, then we know that you need to go out and network and meet the women in Darien, Connecticut, who are gig economy people or freelancers who need a place to go. You need to go meet those people. So giving people access to tapping into their own networks within their business sector takes it out of the friends and family round. Because I think friends and family rounds in general, whether it's an equity round or a crowdfunding round, it can feel, it just doesn't feel great when you're an entrepreneur and you're launching something. Yes, like you ask your friends and family and you invite them to participate in all those good things, but what feels even better is engaging your future customers, right, in what you're doing and getting them to buy in. And frankly, that's the traction that you're gonna need when you go to a VC investor eventually to say, look, we sold 100 memberships to our space that wasn't even open yet because there was such a need in Darien, Connecticut for this thing. And look, we did, $200,000 in the first year in revenue, right, from our crowdfunding, and now Mr. or Miss Angel Investor, invest in us. We're $1 million, a $5 million valuation, blah, 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 whatever. So thank you for asking that question.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
The question you posed earlier, which is if we could give each person one actionable thing to take away, I answered though I was speaking to a room full of investors, but it strikes me that so many of you are likely entrepreneurs, and I think to that end, everything Karen said is exactly right. And I would also say, as both a founder and a funder, it's not just about friends and family. It is about having the courage to talk to every single person you come across and pitch your company.
Yes.
And I have met people in airplanes, at conferences, through friends of friends of friends of friends. Our biggest investor, who I think is somewhere here, it came through a blind email. One of my girlfriends raised her biggest check for her venture fund by striking up a conversation with a man in an elevator. I think that it is, if I were to say what is one thing I would encourage other entrepreneurs to do if they left here today, it would be start now and talk to every person, because it's going to take 4 to 6 to 8 times longer than you think it's going to take. And, it's going to be unlikely suspects that end up writing you those checks. It's not going to be the people you think it is. So I think friends and family is sort of this North Star that people look to, and it's thrown around a lot. But I think both in terms of realities as it relates to capacity, but also in terms of what a cap table actually looks like, it isn't your bread and butter. And so don't get hung up in that.
Can I add something just on that from a sales component, especially for the entrepreneurs in the room that are like, I don't really sell, I don't do this part, this is very uncomfortable for me. Here's the tip. Just talk about it passionately. Don't feel like you're selling anything. Tell your story about what it is. And don't think that the end result has to necessarily be a check, especially when we just had a casual conversation.
We're going to partner, guys.
So it was just dialogue. It wasn't if you're just looking for the end result of the money, it shows in your dialogue and people can feel that. So if you just have casual conversations with random people, just practice it. Practice just talking to strangers. I'm one of those, I'll sit at a bar and I'll talk to a stranger, and I hate talking to strangers. I'm really I'm an introvert on the inside, I promise. But it's if I do, it's just practice. It's like speed dating. Just practice it. Just keep practicing it, and you'll get a hit, and it'll get a hit in an unlikely moment, and you're like, I wasn't even trying to close this, and they want to invest.
That is a great question. We have to wrap. Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, so at Karen Cahn and at iFundWomen, more importantly.
At Hitha Palepu.
thefourthfloor.co.
thehelm.co.
At Danita Johnson _ at LA_Sparks.
Thank you all so much for being here. Go out and buy something women-owned. Go invest in women-owned businesses. Go invest in female founders. All the money for all the women now has concluded. Thank you very much.
Everyone, lunch is at the back of the room. Feel free to help yourself.